What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria, here on my YouTube channel. My name is Court. I am your host for the duration. As always, I would like to introduce my co-hosts. First, we have Chris.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? And
down below, of course, we have Andris.
Howdy.
And so today, the way the show is going to go is we have three sort of big topics that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about a new Batman animated series that's going to be coming out. It's being developed right now. We'll talk about that. Then we're going to do a full spoilers review of Zack Snyder's new zombie flick, Army of the Dead, which is on Netflix right now. And then finally, we have a discussion. Andris, do you want to sort of give us an idea of what we're going to be talking about there?
We're going to be talking about underrated zombie flicks.
All right. So as per usual, we want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you'll consider dropping a like on the video. It helps the video get out there a little bit more. If you haven't subscribed, definitely think about doing that. And anything you want to talk about in the comments, hit the comments below. I read all the comments. I respond to them whenever I can. So don't think anything is going unread. But with that little preamble out of the way, we are going to talk about this new animated Batman series that is called Batman Caped Crusader. I like that title very much. It is going to be sort of produced by J.J. Abrams and Bruce Timm, who, of course, was the lead animator. And I believe he was the showrunner on Batman, the animated series back in the 90s, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. And who am I missing? I'm missing one other person.
Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, of course.
Director of the last two Planet of the Apes films and the upcoming The Batman with Robert Pattinson.
And, of course, director of The Pallbearer.
Yeah,
David Schwimmer vehicle, The Pallbearer.
The movie no one remembers from the 90s.
Right. And nobody probably should. So I have some quotes here, but before we get into that, Andris, I'm going to ask you first. Were you a fan of Batman, the animated series?
You know, it's funny. Yes, I didn't like the Burton Batman films as a kid. They were okay, but it was Batman, the animated series that pulled me in and made me a Bat fan when I was growing up.
What about you, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's terrific. The original Batman the Animated Series from the 90s, I think, is not only one of the best kind of TV adaptations of a comic book, but it's probably up there with me with one of the best animated shows ever. I think it was such a perfect blend of everything you love from the comics of Batman, but it was a perfect blend of like, it appealed to kids, but it was also mature enough in its storytelling and its plotting and its characterization that it still appeals to adults today.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I'm off base with that or if I'm overhyping it, but I really think it's a fantastic show.
I agree.
You go back as an adult and it holds up so well. You're like, wow. And you catch things that you didn't catch as a kid because the show didn't pander to children. You know, it didn't play it up as we're a kid's show. It's like, no, it's
exactly.
Well, it also really went like deep into like the psychological stuff, which is always like, that's my bag.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, recently I watched the first part of the episode where Harvey Dent gets turned into Two-Face. It's like, it gets really heavy for a kid's show. Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And some of that scarecrow stuff got pretty scary. And
oh yeah.
Yeah. Pulled no punches.
Yeah. So, of course, that show was, I believe, showrun by Bruce Timm, who was a longtime animator artist at DC. So he's back again with J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves. Chris, let me ask you first, what do you think about this trio doing this show?
I'm very excited. To me, the big news is Bruce Timm. Hypothetically, if it was just coming out that Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams have a new Batman animated show, I'd be like, okay, I'll wait and see. Batman's had a lot of animated shows in the past couple decades. But the fact that Bruce Timm is coming back and it's seeming like he's going to have like a really significant role, not just kind of like in name only, like he's going to be kind of spearheading this. That's really exciting to me. As we're talking about, I think it's probably one of my favorite adaptations of Batman in any medium. Which was helmed by Bruce Timm. So getting him back, I think is terrific. Along with the, I don't know if it's a concept art, but it was a little like kind of poster they had that showed a very similar looking Batman to the Batman animated series, and it had kind of the Art Deco font for when it says Cape Crusader. And I'm just like, yes, it's giving me the same vibes of the show from the 90s.
Yeah, that title I really liked. For me, the actual image of Batman, to me, that looked a lot more like his original incarnation in the comics, like the 40s stuff, because it had this sort of curved horns and or ears, I should say. They're not horns, but yeah, I really like the image. And reminder to Court in editing, put that on the screen now. One thing I'm really hoping is that they bring back, because we don't know who all is going to be on the writers team. One thing, I'm getting ahead of myself here because I want to pose the question to you about this trio, Andris, but let me just throw this out. I really hope they get Paul Dini back, because he wrote, I think, a lot of like some of the best episodes of that show. And I don't know, have you guys ever read, it's a graphic novel he wrote maybe like 5 years ago. It's called A Dark Night. Do you guys know this?
No.
This is it. Okay. So years ago, Paul Dini he had been on a date and he was walking home and he got mugged and he was beaten like mercilessly. They told him they were going to kill him. It was really bad. And he went home and he just got wasted and he didn't know what to do with himself. And then because he had been writing these Batman characters for so long, you know, they're so in his head. And so this whole book is about him sort of convalescing and trying to get back into the world. And so the Joker's there and the Joker's just going, you know, like, stay at home. You don't have whatever, you know, like just try to keep him messed up. And then Batman is in his head going, get the fuck up. It's time to get back to it, blah, blah, blah. And this book is awesome. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. But definitely worth a read. Andris, J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, Bruce Timm, what do you think?
Before I say it, that was a fantastic joke. I didn't know you could do that.
Normally I can do it way better, actually. Thank you for saying that. I have a bit of a sore throat, so it's a little bit off, but
it helps though.
Yeah, no, solid, Mark Hamill.
Thank you.
Now, okay, Tim, obviously, I mean, he did Batman animated series, Superman animated series, Justice League Unlimited. It was the Tim-verse was very solid. So seeing him come back is fantastic. But for me personally, I don't really know too much about Matt Reeves, so I can't really speak about, you know, sure, okay, I'm interested in this new Batman movie he's doing. Okay. But what's got me, though, is the fact that they've got Abrams coming in. He's like the golden boy of launching new franchises. I mean, he did Star Wars, he did Star Trek, everything he's done. No matter how chaotic and turbulent the films get later on, what he does with his introductions is always like fantastic, and it's always loved by the old fans and the new fans. So it's just like, holy crap, this is an all-star lineup.
But I think when you said that to me in the chat, and I wasn't sure if you were being sarcastic or not.
No, I'm being legit.
Okay. And yeah, I think we've established we're all fans of The Force Awakens, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I just have Abrams and Matt Reeves put out a statement, so I'm just gonna read what those characters had to say.
Those crazy cats.
Okay, so what they said, this was a statement they put out from the both of them, but they said we are beyond excited to be working together to bring this character back to tell engrossing news stories in Gotham City. The series will be thrilling, cinematic, and evocative of Batman's noir roots while diving deeper into the while diving deeper into the psychology of these iconic characters. We cannot wait to share this new world. I'm going to start with that sounds very promising to me.
Yes.
I love noir Batman. As we said, Batman the Animated Series, affectionately known to fans as BTAS. Again, that got pretty noir. That got very psychological.
Did you say beat ass?
I did. That's what fans call it.
It's effectively known as beat ass, also known as the booty bongo. In case you didn't know.
So yeah, I mean that on the surface that sounds great to me, and I think one of the producers or someone at the animation company were saying they're going to be using state-of-the-art animation techniques, so it's going to look very very unique. I love it.
Andris, CGI?
It didn't say. My guess is probably yes.
Ooh. I don't know if I like that. I know it's not confirmed, but when I hear state-of-the-art animation, that sounds like CG. And yeah, I mean, I don't know.
it could be 2D computer animation though. That's the thing, because
Right.
CG can go either way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Even though, sorry, go ahead.
I could go either way. I mean, I have faith in these people.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to see it. I'd have to see kind of what the design looks like and how the animation goes. Because you're right on just like this is random, but there's a Netflix movie called Klaus on already said it. It's on Netflix. It's kind of about like Santa Claus, and it's it's a good movie, but it's technically 2D, but it had 3D coloring and lighting effects, and it created really beautiful images. Like if you haven't seen it, just at least watch a trailer. And if they do something similar to that, where it's like they use CG to kind of enhance the 2D effect, I think that would be great. But like part of the reason why I was excited, and I guess nobody confirmed this, was that I was building up in my head that, oh, it's going to be 2D again, because I love 2D animation, and I think it's kind of fallen out of vogue in the last couple decades. So I really hope that they don't just go full blown 3D animation.
I can agree with that, and I think Batman the Animated Series had such a unique look because I don't know if you guys know this, but they animated on black paper instead of white paper, which is why it looked so dark.
About that.
I think is super cool. But
it caused problems for me as a 90s child though, because when you grow up with that and then you go try to watch the X-Men, you're like, it's so bright. Jesus Christ.
But I mean, when talking about sort of state-of-the-art animation techniques, I'm kind of thinking of Into the Spider-Verse, which was CG animated, but it looked amazing.
Oh yeah.
It was 3D, of course, but I don't know. I'm kind of with you, Chris. I don't necessarily love the idea of it being CG animated. If that is what is to be the case, we don't know that. But if it looks good, that's really all I care about at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing I was going to add, I don't know if you had anything. I just out of curiosity, I just went to IMDb to see if there was any other information that was on there. So I opened up the trivia, and I know this is not like technically a good indicator of the general consensus, but I swear I'm not even joking. If you just go to the trivia, there's already like 15 entries. All of it are just like, fans are upset about J.J. Abrams' involvement. Fans are pissed because J.J. Abrams ruined Star Wars. And I'm like, are they? Like, I didn't hear that many people. I've seen some people be kind of negative about this.
Abrams doesn't ruin Star Wars. It was Rian Johnson.
I think that's a dumb take. I mean, Abrams has produced like a shit ton of things that have been really good. He's not solely writing it and directing it. So if you have a problem with his films, whatever. He's one producer out of like two others and probably several others by the time this is done. Sorry, Court. I didn't mean to commandeer it. It's just
no. That's great.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, you still have the golden boy Bruce Timm in there. So I think it's going to be just. I mean, like J.J. Abrams also did a couple of years ago. Bad Robot adapted a Stephen King book that I love called 11/22/63 into a series. It was really good. It was really good.
Yeah, he's a solid producer. I mean, like I said, you go to his IMDb, he has like 75 things that he's produced.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of it's just solid. So,
my big thing though, do we know what the rating is going to be and who the demographic they're aiming for is?
No.
That's that. I mean, I'm not saying it could be good or bad because obviously Batman the Animated Series was a kids show, but I'm just interested to see where they're going to take this. What because that's an interesting wild card thing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested in that too.
That's a conversation I was having with a couple buddies of mine because over the years, and maybe he was always a horn dog, I don't know, but over the years, like Bruce Timm has gotten. He's really like sexualized a lot of his characters. Like, Harley was already, don't you want to rev up your Harley? But like he does a lot of pinup art. In some of the more recent DC animated movies, they've really sexualized Harley, or Batgirl had sex with Batman in The Killing Joke, and
for no reason
whatsoever. That was weird.
Reason.
Well, he's Batman.
He's Batman.
But yeah, so I'm wondering, I'm not even necessarily against that take. I don't know that I love it, but I I will say this: it wouldn't shock me if this series went a little more adult. What do you guys think about that?
I've got no objections. I mean, they've been pushing, especially if you look at the 90s and 2000s, you had all the Dark Horse comics that took Batman in serial killer territory. And you've got this new Harley Quinn animated series that's been very raunchy and, you know. But on the flip side, I hope... I think it's like the people who are like, oh, it's supposed to be dark. You're like, yeah, but it's a kid's fucking comic book. You want to get kids something to watch. You know, it's like, I can go either way. I hope they approach things tastefully. And I'm sure they will. There's a lot of pressure on this. I mean, the way they're advertising it, it's like a lot of people are going to tune in. I don't know how many people tuned into the previous. I mean, there have been like 1,500 Batman animated shows.
Shit ton.
And it's like, I haven't watched... I watched Gotham, which is great.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Contrary to what Court always says. But yeah.
I tried, man. I tried. I made it 2 seasons. Good. I couldn't do it.
I know, and that's where it got good afterwards. But yeah, no, I think there's going to be enough pressure to get this right that I don't think we have to worry too much about it. But I'm just curious, you know, what's going to happen.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I made it clear that I think the right thing to do is that Bruce Timm just needs to kind of go like whole hog the other way and now starts like overly sexualizing all the male enemies in Batman's rogues gallery. So, you know, the Joker is just going to have like 6-pack abs. Bane is going to have like a weird like undercut so his balls can be seen. You know, kind of like cleavage, but it's his balls. And they're impressive because they're Bane. So
I don't know though, man. He's on steroids.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
And then like they'll all have like shirts with the nipples cut out, so they got pierced nipples that are exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess they'll bring back the bat nipples too, because I mean, why not?
They will, all right.
Yeah. So that's the only way that I think I would watch it. No, I don't mind. I get where you're coming from. Where I think that if there's definitely a line you can cross where it just seems like this is too kind of gratuitous. Like, does it need to be like this? Like, I don't think it needs to be as adult as the recent Amazon show Invincible, which was like very much like this is for adults. I think, yeah, striking. I don't mind if the show kind of aims a little older than the original Batman animated series, but I don't think too much more. Like, I don't need Batman dropping F-bombs. I don't need, you know, gratuitous sex scenes. I think that with having JJ involved as well as Matt Reeves, I don't think it will go in that direction.
Yeah,
those two guys are not really known for their adult kind of R-rated stuff. They kind of ride that PG-13.
They understand the family entertainment demographic is what I would say.
They want that 4-quadrant kind of marketing where it's like younger kids, not like babies or children, to kind of, you know, middle-aged to even older adults. So,
and just for anyone watching, when people say 4-quadrant, I think I have this right. It usually means like males and females, younger and older as well, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, in a short way. Essentially, that just means like it's a way of saying you're reaching the largest demographic of people possible.
Right. All right. Well, I think that wraps up that conversation. So we are going to move on here. We are going to do a full spoilers review of Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Before we get into the beats of the movie, Chris, I'll throw it to you first. Do you want to give me your sort of overall impression of this film?
I liked it. It's there were things that I quite liked about it. I was entertained while watching it. There's a lot of problems that I have with it. I didn't love it, but I was more entertained than I thought I would be, and I was actually more invested than I thought I would be in the character and the story. So overall, I would say it's good, not great.
Andris?
I saw this under the worst conditions you could possibly see a movie in. Spent the past week getting up
Guantanamo
early.
Bay. No.
I was in Gitmo and they were blasting this show or the movie, and they were saying, "Where are the codes?" And I didn't give them the codes. Anyway, I've been going apartment hunting, as these guys know. So I've been going to bed at 4 and waking up at 9 and going apartment listings. It's been brutal. So I've been sleep deprived over the past week, and the heat finally hit Chicago, so I've had a big portable AC unit blasting. And when you have that, you can't understand half of what's being said. This will come up later because there are things I didn't pick up that I'm going to have to ask you guys about in this film. Nevertheless, I didn't hate it, which is huge because, as you guys know, and as our viewers may not have picked up by now, I'm very critical of Zack Snyder as a filmmaker.
You are.
And I didn't hate this. I didn't love it. I had issues with it, but I didn't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the worst thing he's done.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same place. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I don't think it's like pinnacle of the genre. I found it quite entertaining. I thought there were some cool ideas. Well, I guess we'll talk about the cast next. I thought Dave Bautista did a really good job sort of carrying this film. What do you think about that, Andris?
It was okay. Yeah.
Chris?
All right. No, I really liked Dave Bautista in this. I thought the dude has been talking a lot in his personal life about wanting to be a legitimate actor. Like not that sounds shitty. What I mean is like he wants to be taken serious as like a legitimate dramatic actor. He doesn't just want to do kind of Drax roles where he's just funny all the time. And I think he has the chops. In this he's quite good. He delivers his lines, I think, with a nice kind of subtlety and naturalism. Like he never really felt, for the most part, some lines were a bit more over the top, but I don't blame him. But I think that for the most part, he was really natural and really believable. And I believed him as this kind of character in his relationships that he had, especially with his daughter. I thought was great. And he got some moments to really kind of, work those chops and cry and be emotional. I thought he was solid. So I really enjoyed him. And as a lead, I can't really recall, because I know I didn't see Stuber, but I can't recall seeing him in something where he was the lead. I'm sure he has been before, but yeah, he carried a movie that was very much an ensemble piece.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him as the lead. I did care about him. He was simultaneously big macho action man, but also had more heart and personality than just kind of blank stoic action man.
Right.
And he didn't play it as a comic relief. He got to play it straight for this one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He got a couple dry one-liners or like a little bit of wit to him. But yeah, he wasn't a goofball. He wasn't like Drax just being like a dork or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I'll pose this question to the both of you before we get into the story. Were there any other characters or actors that stood out to you specifically? Let's go with Andris first.
I'm thinking.
Let's go with Chris first.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, I really liked the cast, actually. I thought that this was a solid ensemble, and which is something you want from a heist film. I thought his daughter, played by Ella Purnell, was really good. The character, some of the choices that they made for her, I thought were kind of weak, but she played it, and she had a really kind of heartbreaking moment towards the end. But everyone else was good to really good. I didn't think there was really a weak link in this. Nobody was really giving a bad performance. And some people were really terrific. Like the guy who played the safe hacker, or he was the safe cracker. He's kind of a fun, kind of energetic character, and his relationship with the guy with the buzzsaw was cool.
Yeah, I loved that bromance, like watching that sort of, because they're really at odds and ends early in the film, and then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really like the relationship. And last one I'll say before I pass it along is Tig Notaro, who was she was the helicopter pilot, and it seems like 99% of her dialogue was probably improvised, which I thought she was great. Not every line worked, but she just was like this cynical asshole that was just done with everything, and I loved it. I thought she made me laugh pretty consistently.
Well, and I found this out too. Apparently that role was supposed to be played by Chris D'Elia, and they shot it with him, but then there was like sexual misconduct allegations or something. I don't know much about Chris D'Elia, but so they like reshot all of it with just her on a green screen, not interacting with any of the other actors, and they just fit it in. I don't know if I would notice that if I were to rewatch it, but I absolutely did not get a sense of that when I was watching it originally. I didn't know it at the time, but did that stand?
Yeah, a teeny bit, because I knew about it going in, and they do a really good job. In fact, there's one scene where they're kind of she's walking and talking with Dave Bautista, and you never would have you've been able to tell. But then there's other scenes when there's kind of wide shots of the group as a whole, and you can tell that she's just kind of awkwardly digitally placed in there.
Okay,
but you know what? I bought it for most of it, especially with the scenes where it counts, where there's dialogue and everything. I bought it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a testament that you didn't even notice it, Court. Like clearly it didn't stand out enough to you. So I think good on him.
So Andris, do you have anyone you want to mention for specific standouts to you?
I had no standouts, as you guys are saying. Yeah, the cast was solid. It was an ensemble cast. They did what they had to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if, due to the whole Justice League mustache fiasco, they were especially vigilant on making sure putting her into that role worked, because people were memeing that mouth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they really did a great job on Tig Notaro's mustache. It was you couldn't even tell that she had it in this.
It's true.
That's not a knock against her. I love her stand up. She's terrific.
Well, so let's get into the story here, and I will start because right from the get-go, actually, you know what? Let's start with Andris. So the film starts with a couple who've just gotten married, and they're going for a drive in the desert, and it's intercut with a military convoy transporting some type of payload. It's a zombie. We don't know that yet. And
we do.
Pretty much.
Everyone knows.
Andris, would you like to tell me what you thought of that sequence?
Sure. Hooray for gratuitous roadhead within 3 minutes. It's just, I mean, it's fine. Couples do that. But it was just like, was that necessary? I mean, I understood they were trying to set it up where it was like, okay, we need people to be distracted, so when what happens is sellable. But Snyder's first thought was, hey, roadhead.
Who's going to give you a reach around?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was kind of sophomore humor. Where
it's Snyder.
I wasn't like mad at it or anything, but it was kind of like, okay, this is him going back to kind of pre-DC Snyder, where he's got kind of some crude humor and is going for that kind of more lurid R-rated territory.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me, but it's like, it's kind of the same scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League with the guy with the burger reaching for the burger. The distracted driver. We didn't get a close up on a sesame seed, unfortunately, this time around. But
one last thing I'll say about that is that I did kind of laugh out loud when the car hit the armored military vehicle and both of them exploded.
Right? Yeah, that was a little much.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Okay, this probably $1 million armored vehicle. Its main weakness is a 1970s Oldsmobile. Like, what the fuck?
You see, what they cut this out of the script. What happened was they got their armored convoy vehicles off a Wish, and this is what happens when you order things off a Wish.
So there's a collision, and the one soldier radios in and says, it's compromised, blah blah blah, and she says, okay, just like get the hell out of there, just run. So he and his buddy go running into the desert, and I messaged these fellows about this because, and I don't know if it was purely coincidental. I sincerely doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a ripoff or an homage. Andris, you were saying probably homage. I'm inclined to agree. Homage. But there's a. Sorry, go ahead.
The man is known for knowing horror, and it's what you're about to say is a classic. So it's like, yeah.
Okay. So there is a moment where basically these two soldiers, they get out into the desert. They're walking along, it's nighttime, and they start hearing some growling, and the camera's kind of circling around these guys as they're looking around. They're like, it's hunting us. And they're walking, and then the one guy falls. The other guy sort of freaks out because he's startled, and he goes to help the other guy up. And at that moment, the zombie attacks. It is straight out of An American Werewolf in London. The exact same thing happens. Jack and David are walking on the moors. It's nighttime. They're hearing growling. The camera's circling around them. David falls. Jack freaks out. David tries to pull Jack up, gets attacked by the werewolf. And it was so like insanely clear to me. And I think my first thought was like, really? And then my second thought was like, Nah, that's kind of cool, actually. And then I still thought maybe it was coincidental, but then later in the movie they used a cover of CCR's Bad Moon Rising, which is used very prominently in American Werewolf in London. That solidified it for me. I know you guys both didn't notice that, but in retrospect, let me ask you, Chris, do you think I'm onto something here?
Absolutely, yeah. It's because it's been years since I've seen American Werewolf in London. I love that film.
Shame.
So I know I should rewatch it soon. And I didn't peg it initially, but once you said it in the chat, I was like, you're effing right, man. That's it. Totally is. It really is an homage to it. I mean, because I can't hear the song "Bad Moon Rising" without thinking of American Werewolf in London anymore.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I thought that was the one reference, but once you said it, I was like, God damn it, you're right. I can't believe I missed that.
And sorry, go ahead.
I saw it under the worst circumstances possible, so I didn't even hear the lines.
Right.
Fair enough.
But I might have, and if I had slept more than 3 hours that day, maybe I would have picked it. Like, oh, but yeah.
And let me just say to anybody watching, if you have not seen An American Werewolf in London,
shame on you.
I know it's going back a long ways. It came out in 1981. It is not only the best werewolf movie I've ever seen, it has the all-time great. The movie is 40 years old. It's got the all-time greatest werewolf transformation you will ever freaking see.
Absolutely.
It is so goddamn good. So definitely check that out if you haven't. So yeah, basically the zombie attacks these guys. He's a big hulking zombie. And then essentially we go to the opening credits. And the opening credits were about as Zack Snyder as you can possibly get. You're sort of
absolutely sort
of slow motion tableau, with the sort of an uppity pop song. Here was Viva Las Vegas by, I think it was by Richard Cheese. I'm not certain of that.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it's fun. It's kind of silly. There's it sort of tells a bit of the story leading up to where the film really kicks off.
Yes and no. We'll get to it.
Okay. And a lot of it is just kind of goofy and violent and whatever. Then we also are sort of introduced to our main character. I was very perplexed by this, but we're sort of introduced to our main characters as they're like posing for professional photographs with like the backdrop. Not sure what that was supposed to be. I found it kind of funny though.
Yeah.
But then we also get this story of this like mother and daughter that it sort of keeps cutting back to. And to me, like, I'm trying to remember what happened. I think both of them get surrounded by zombies and she has to like cradle her daughter and she's crying. And
oh yeah,
it was genuinely heartbreaking.
I was like, oh, he faked this out, that rascal.
Chris, how did you feel about the titles?
Yeah, I mean, he's done this, oftentimes before, going all the way back to the first Dawn of the Dead. It wasn't in slow motion, or not the first, but his remake from 2004. He loves long title sequences, and especially later in his career, it's often very much in slow-mo. So yeah, it was cool. I agree with, I think you mentioned in the chat, Court, I think it went on a little too long. Like yes. It was
like 10 or 15 minutes. Like,
no, it wasn't 15 minutes, but it was long. It was long. Yeah. So I dug it, but it was a little long. Also, I had a thought too about the weird kind of photo shoot that they were doing. I think that would have worked better if there was other sort of stylistic choices like that throughout the rest of the movie.
Right. It just felt very out of place with everything else.
Yeah, it was the only time that it did that. So
it gave the movie, I don't know if you guys got this, but for me personally, it felt more like a TV show at times, and having them posing with their photos in the opening credits like that kind of gives you like a sitcom intro.
Oh, okay.
Someone needs to recut that with like an upbeat 90s like sitcom show.
Everywhere you look.
Hell yeah.
That would be great. I will say one of my negatives for this movie, and the title sequence kind of almost sets it up. This movie is really long. This movie is 2.5 hours, which, as I said in my non-spoiler review, is still an entire movie shorter than Zack Snyder's Justice League. But 2.5 hours, like, I don't think there was enough character work to to justify that. I don't think there was enough story to justify that. I feel like this movie could have been 90 minutes and it would have been pretty much the same flick.
It's Peter Jackson syndrome.
Right.
Once you've made a movie that's 4 hours, you don't know what an appropriate runtime is anymore. Because I said the same thing in my notes that I wrote. I said this movie was longer than it should have been. Snyder doesn't know how to trim the fat.
Right.
Because we'll get into it later on, but I feel like some of those tender emotional moments could have been cut out. Because that's where the film like just nosedives and it gets really tedious, and the characters aren't given enough to work with to make these scenes really, I mean, some of them, yes, others, not so much. And that's where you could have trimmed.
What do you think about the runtime, Chris?
Yeah, I simultaneously think that it was too long, but I'm at the moment, I'm trying to think of what would specifically be cut, because I'm going through a lot of scenes in my head. And I'm like, oh, maybe cut this guy. Oh no, but you need him for this to happen. This, and that. I simultaneously think they could have cut. I'm jumping around a bit. You could have cut the zombie love subplot with the baby.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it was so weird that I was kind of like, I kind of appreciate that it's in here, because it's like I haven't quite seen that before. Like we've seen similar things, but I'm like, that's weird. I don't know. You know what I mean?
And that's actually something I want to touch on, because that's one thing I liked about this movie, even though it got kind of goofy at times. This sort of societal hierarchy of zombies, I haven't quite seen that in a movie before. In fact, to me, this movie felt like a mixture of like just the zombie genre in general, Ocean's 11, and Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. Not so much the Will Smith movie, but the actual novel that was vampires, but they're their own society. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a cool take. I haven't really seen that in a zombie movie before. The whole king and queen zombie, again, it was weird. It got a little bit goofy at times, but I did kind of like the idea of how they have this society and they have kind of rules, and they'll allow people to come in as long as there's an offering. And that was kind of cool. What did you think about that, Andris?
I didn't get it.
Okay.
Because you're like, okay, they're doing an offering. Where are all the zombies? There was something about, I mean, mind you, once again, this will be a disclaimer for everything I'm saying. I had a giant air conditioner in my left ear, so I didn't catch some exposition, but I was like, where are all the zombies they're talking about? Because it was like, you're doing an offering, but what does that mean then? Does that mean that the alphas, that's what they're called. They're called the alphas. Yeah. Are the alphas going to protect you from the other zombies? Do the other zombies report to the alphas? There wasn't enough really explained. And should I launch into what my problem? I finally figured out what the problem with Snyder's work is.
I think you should. Now? I think you should.
So, because this has been, I've never understood why I didn't like Snyder's work, even though I like some of his films, I don't like others. The biggest problem with Zack Snyder's films is he's a terrible writer. Any films he's directed that he didn't write, such as Dawn of the Dead and Watchmen, has been fairly well received, while any films he's helped write, Sucker Punch, the DCEU, Army of the Dead, have had issues his flashy directorial style can't compensate for.
All right. Chris, do you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just trying to look up what his writing credits. Yeah, he's not a terrific writer. Although I haven't seen this in a while, but I remember liking 300 a lot when it came out, and I think he kind of co-wrote that.
But that's also an adaptation of a graphic novel. He handles adaptations very well, but when it's his own thing, that's when things start crumbling for him as a director.
Sure, yeah. He wrote the screenplay for Sucker Punch, and Sucker Punch is very bad. I mean, I quite liked Zack Snyder's Justice League, so I don't know. I mean, I think he's kind of hit and miss for me as far as a writer. And when it comes to the hierarchy of the zombies, I liked it. I thought it was cool, and they didn't go too in depth in it, but they did kind of explain what was going on with the offering and everything. They were kind of explain, like, there's these rules that there's this woman, this blonde woman, who is essentially like a navigator. Like she kind of essentially all of Los Angeles. By the way, because for
Las Vegas.
Oh my God, sorry about that. Las Vegas. All of Las Vegas is essentially like enclosed, so all the zombies are in there. But there's like this coyote, I think they call her, and she kind of brings people in, smuggles people in for certain things, and kind of brings back out. So she's quite aware of what goes on in the city. And she was explaining, like, yeah, there are alphas. Like, there's shamblers, which are kind of the George Romero zombies. Then you have really fast zombies, and then you have like these pretty intelligent alpha zombies. And they were like, we need to give them an offering, essentially as kind of like a truce, as like, hey, we're not going to f with you. We're going to, stay as far away as you guys as possible.
We're just here for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, now this is where I've got another question. I didn't understand her character. I understood what she does, but you're like, you see the people who work for the government that are keeping everything quarantined. They're well aware of what she does. How does she keep them at bay if they know that there is a way to get inside and outside? That's a huge contingency from trying to secure a dangerous situation like that.
I didn't get the vibe that like it was well known. It seemed more like there was, so essentially again, Las Vegas is enclosed, and then right on the outskirts of it is sort of like these concentration camps, essentially, where people who are misplaced and they don't have anywhere to go. And she seems to be just like one of them. Like, she's not working for the government. She seems to be someone on the outskirts. So I don't remember a line of dialogue or anything indicating that it's like, oh, the police and everybody knows what they're up to.
But you have to remember, douchebag McRape mustache man literally saw them going in there. He works for them. He sees them going. He doesn't stop them. He isn't like, what are you doing? He seems pretty knowledgeable about what's going on.
He's a piece of shit that's looking out for his own means. In the fact he joins part of the mission initially to go in there. So he's this crooked guy, and it's I think they indicate that he's just looking the other way because he does a lot of illegal, terrible shit himself.
That's fair. That's fair. That was where my big snag was. I was like, wait, how can, because I mean, you'd have to imagine they're going to have people working in shifts to maintain law and order in this camp. And it's like, well, what happens when the other guy comes in? Are they paying them on the side?
To me, that's getting into CinemaSins level of nitpicking, where it's like, I don't need to know the entire backstory of how, like, okay, well, what about on Tuesdays at 5 p.m.? Is she still able to go into Las Vegas? It's like, I'm able to extrapolate that she does it on the sly. Nobody really knows about it, and she does it when she can. Court, am I crazy?
I'm kind of with you there. I mean, that one guy, Mick Rape Mustache, whatever you called him. And this isn't even us necessarily making light, because it is another character does say that he's been raping people in this this sort of encampment. But he definitely seems like he's in it for his own means. And I mean, he goes on the mission for whatever it was, like $20,000 or something like that. And of course, he's the person who is eventually the offering to the zombies, which was great. I was very happy about that because, man, I believe the actor's name is Theo Rossi. Dude plays a slime ball really well.
Yeah. I swear Zack Snyder just has a Rolodex of actors who can act like scummy people, because every one of his films just has like, here's this douchebag, here's this douchebag.
Right. So let me ask you guys this, and then we'll talk a bit about the story, and then we'll move on. But what did you guys think about the look? As I mentioned last time we talked about this when the trailer came out, Zack Snyder's not only the director of this film, he was also the DP. He also shot the movie himself. Personally, I thought the movie looked really good, as most Zack Snyder movies do. So I want to ask you guys about the way it looked, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on the visual effects in this film. So Andris, let's start with you.
I was shocked because this was a Netflix film, but it looked like a giant budget blockbuster. I mean, the visual effects, for the most part, there's like one shot in the ending where it just looks really bad with the escape helicopter, but anything before that, it was like, it held very good. I mean, I kept saying, oh my God, for a Netflix film, this is huge. So yeah, no, it was shot well. It looked great. The visual effects did what they needed to do. The zombie tiger held its own very well. I mean, when you think about CG tigers, the only one you can think of that was like, it's like from a show is The Walking Dead. Looks okay, fine, whatever. But like, this is like a movie, and it's like, wait, but it's a Netflix movie. I'm like, it's insane.
Well, and let me just jump in. Today on YouTube, on my feed, a video came up about how they did the CGI on this zombie tiger, which, yeah, I thought the zombie tiger looked really, really good.
Yeah.
But the way they did it was they actually like filmed a real white tiger and blah, 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 and then based a lot of stuff on that. But so the lead visual effects guy was talking, and he was like, you know, we were in LA, but we had to find, you know, a tiger we could go and see and film and blah, blah, blah. So we got in touch with this person in Florida, and we flew down there and spent time with this tiger and blah, blah, blah. And it was Carol Baskin from Tiger King. I have not watched Tiger King, but I've heard all about it. So yeah, he said he flew home, and then he was like working in his office, and his wife was watching something on TV. He's like, I know that voice. That's the woman I went to see.
Oh that bitch, Carol Baskin.
And apparently, like, she potentially murdered her husband and fed him to a tiger. Okay.
Insane. Allegedly. For legal reasons, allegedly, she is a terrifying, weird old lady.
Yeah, I never saw it myself, but the Tiger King memes that were all over Facebook last year were wild.
Yeah, I gotta watch it. It looks remarkably entertaining.
I've heard horrifying things about it. So
it's a weird story.
So Chris, what did you think about the visual effects, the tiger, the way the film was shot?
I thought that the film was inconsistent with its visuals. Zack Snyder is terrific with his tableaus. He can create some really striking images of oftentimes in wide shots of just kind of setting and characters, essentially the framing and blocking. He's really terrific at that. But a lot of this film, in fact, the majority of the film was shot on handheld with an extremely shallow depth of field. Essentially, for those who may not know what that means, it's essentially most of what's in the frame is out of focus except for a very small, very specific spot.
He does that a lot in like all of his movies for sure, but it was all over this.
Yeah, no, in this one, because I've noticed it before in his films, but it was never distracting. In this one, it was because it was constant. I think it's partially because I think it is because he's the director of photography. And I think it's overused, partially because using different lenses, focal lengths, anything, it has this inherent meaning. Cinematic visual language means something to people. So you often would see in other movies this type of shallow depth of field in situations where characters, let's say, are like drugged and they're just starting to feel the effects, or they're about to knock out, because blurring everything creates a disorientation and makes you feel like, oh shit, I'm losing focus. But he does it just for the most normal conversations of people talking, and they move slightly and they're completely out of focus for long stretches of time. And it's like, to me, it was really distracting.
Well, you see, what happened was, according to the trivia, they lost all the other lenses, so they had to shoot with one. I'm kidding. I made that up. I don't know why you did that.
I mean, for me, like, I think it looks really cool, but in this movie, because it was so freaking, it was distracting, because I remember just kind of going like, that's a Snyder. And I said that a lot, even out loud a couple times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it's that using, shallow depth of field, it looks cool. I think it's just I think that if he had a director of photography, I think that someone else could have stepped in and been like, you're overusing it, like, using it here and there, that works. But he didn't have that, so he was just like, I'm using this shot, and it came to be the majority of the film looked like that. But it's still visually interesting. It's still a stylishly shot, and some really beautiful visuals, like you'd come to expect from Zack Snyder. And the CGI was, for the most part, pretty good. There were some aerial shots of like hordes of zombies that look kind of clearly CGI.
Yeah.
But for the most part, some solid green screen work, and the tiger was, not photorealistic, but it was convincing enough that it still was like a threat when it started attacking people. You could feel the weight of it. So yeah, for apparently the budget is $70 million. So it looks really good for 70 million. That's still a big budget movie, but it's not the 250 million dollar budget that a lot of big blockbusters get.
Like a James Cameron.
Right.
One of those James Cameron films.
Yeah. One thing I appreciated, and I said this in the non-spoiler review, that, I don't need extreme violence to enjoy a movie. Sometimes I don't want that. In a zombie movie, I want a lot of gore.
Oh, yeah.
The violence in this movie is great. I loved it. It was super gory. There were some really inventive kills. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite moments was when they're trying to get to the safe door and they're sending the zombies in to like trigger the booby traps.
Oh, yeah.
And the final one goes in, and the Indiana Jones scene where the wall just like smashes on it and opens up, and it's all like stretchy and gooey. That was amazing. I loved it. What did you guys think of the violence in here? I'll start with you, Andris.
I wish Snyder would make more zombie flicks, because when he does other things, he can be a little too violent for what he's working on. Like superhero movies, it's like, tone it down, my boy. But zombie films, it's like, go ahead, run over heads with school buses, my boy. The world is your candy store of carnage.
Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. For a zombie flick, you want it to be gory and over the top, and he is quite good at it. This is kind of going into also the action aspect of it, which Snyder's very good at directing action. Yes. There's some terrific zombie kills in this. There's a moment, I forget the character's name because she didn't really get an introduction, but there's a moment where they have to kind of sneak through this building that's dark, and there's kind of like zombies that are just kind of like incapacitated. And this one woman gets separated, and she has like this John Wick style kind of battle with all of these zombies, which is really badass. But there's one moment in particular that I kind of just replayed afterwards that I really loved, is because she's starting using like knives and handguns because she wants to be kind of discreet. And at some point, she's just like, screw it. And she gets this machine gun and just blows the shit out of like 5 or 10 of them. And I was like, yes, that's what I love. There's some really good kind of just mowing down of zombies. And even though it's kind of probably mostly CGI blood, it was still satisfying. I loved, some great bright red blood splatter and everything. So some really solid gore in this, I think.
And was she the one who had the sort of the aliens death where they all surround her and she pulls the grenade? And
she was the one that she didn't pull a grenade, but someone shot at her like gasoline.
Oh, that's right. That's
right. Which is not how gasoline tanks work.
From what I remember from Mythbusters, yeah.
It works like that in a Snyder movie.
Yeah, you don't just shoot it and it just explodes. Anyway, but
unless it's a Snyder movie,
right? Another moment of violence that just absolutely tickled me was when Buddy gets his face chomped on by the tiger.
Oh yeah,
that was great. That was so grisly, and the sound effect. Oh, that made my day. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I don't know what that says about me, but.
You like seeing people get their comeuppance,
I guess.
Good gore, man. I dug it.
I guess, are there any specific moments of the movie that either you guys want to talk about? Should we move on? What do you guys think?
For gore?
Just for anything. Story?
I got so much about the story to nitpick.
Go right ahead.
All right. Sorry ahead of time. No, I'm not sorry. Okay, passage of time is poorly established. I had no idea it'd been years since the event in the prologue.
That video I was watching about the tiger, they were saying like, yeah, and then it's been 6 years, and I was like, what? I didn't get that impression at all.
All they needed to do was like 3 years later in like just something, a title card. That was why it was a bit confusing for me, and I was like, wait, I know I can't hear the movie, but wait. That was one thing. Do we want more?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay. Why was Batista's character the go-to guy for the heist? He had no criminal background, as far as I could tell. He was a mercenary.
They did explain that.
They did.
Yeah, so I mean, it was partially what we saw in the beginning with that montage. He was a part of like this initial group of people. They had a title. It was like Lost Vengeance or something.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Where so he was the guy. I'm like, you've been in Las Vegas during the zombies. You were rescuing people. You were shooting zombies. So he was one of like the only, if not the most seasoned zombie killer out there.
Yes, but he might know how to kill zombies. But what says I know how to break in and do a heist for a bank? Because to do a heist, you have to know people who can do specific things. He's a mercenary who shoots zombies. That's what I'm saying. It was like, it's weird that they went to him for that.
But that's what a heist movie is, where you get a group of individual people that have different skills, because together that's how they pull it off. That's why they got the safecracker, they got the helicopter pilot. He didn't do either of those, and that's why the main guy, what's his name? I forget his name, but the
Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yeah, he was the benefactor. He hired them because it's like, hey, you know how to kill zombies. You've been in that area. You're the muscle. We need a bunch of other people to pull off this heist.
Yeah, he kind of said, put together your team, but he actually kind of came up with the basic plan of the heist, right? He being Hiroyuki Sanada, not Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
That's like, here are the blueprints. Here's how you're gonna do it. You go in and you do this, you do this, you do this.
I mean, that's classic. That's classic heist movie where you start off with one main character and he's like, I need to assemble a team that know how to do things that I don't.
So it was Japanese man's heist, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
Actually, before you go on with your nitpicks here, Andres, I'm just joking. There was one scene that I'm really curious to get your guys' take on, because it was so out of place with the rest of the movie. And as it was going, I was like, I don't know if I like this or if I hate this, but it's when they first get down to the hallway that leads to the safe. And I think his name was Vanderho, the guy who ended up being romance with the safecracker guy. But he was going into that, like, what if there are other bodies there? And he's saying, like, what if this is us from like an alternate timeline and we're like going to forever be going through this loop? And I was kind of watching it going like, I kind of love this idea, but it feels so out of place. What did that stand out to you guys? What did you guys think?
Stood out for me, but for different reasons. It's kind of weird that these guys are going in here, and there's two scenes where they establish that they see that there's people who've been doing this heist and failing. And it's like, I don't know, if I were to do a heist and I see that there's two other groups that have gotten that far and died, I'd have questions like, wait, you didn't mention other heist crews that have failed. That's like, that should have tipped him off that something was amiss with the situation, because it was.
Well, they kind of get there at some point, because Batista like sees the plans and he's like, oh, Buddy sent another team in here. Like, they do kind of figure that out. I don't remember if that was before that scene or not, though.
It was before.
Was it?
I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. They shrug it off like, oh, okay. You're like, wait, not okay. They never mentioned that there were other heist teams. If I were to go in as a heist person, I'd be like, wait a minute, you've done this and failed?
Chris, what did you think of that sequence?
I thought it was interesting. I for half a second I thought, like, are they really going to go in this direction? Because that would be kind of cool and weird if it was like a weird kind of time loop. But since nothing really kind of came of that, I just kind of took it more as metaphorical. Okay. You know, that it's just kind of, they're doing the same thing and they're going to die just like the rest of the people, which, spoilers, that's true.
Oh my goodness.
And I also kind of got the impression that it was Vanderho just kind of fucking with them a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of would have dug a weird like primer time loop scenario. Right. Just one extra layer of like batshit whatever nonsense in this.
Right. Andres, please go on.
That's all I got.
Oh, that's all you got.
Okay, cool.
So one thing I want to talk about is, you know, you mentioned that time is weirdly not established terribly well. And actually I found that towards the end of the movie that really stood out, because, you know, they're saying like, we got, I don't know, 20 minutes till the bomb goes off. And like, there's still 45 minutes in this movie. And so that just kind of kept going on. That was a little bit weird.
I did the same thing. I stopped and I was looking at the time code like, wait, what's going to happen?
And not that I needed it to be like real time or anything, but like that's twice as long, you know? And I mean, granted, there was a little bit of an epilogue, which I do want to touch on, but yeah, I mean, I did really like the sort of helicopter escape with the king zombie like hanging off the helicopter. Again, there were a couple of moments where the CGI didn't look great, but it was a pretty like entertaining sequence. and then the helicopter crash. Really liked Dave Bautista's death scene, and I'm pretty sure this is what you were referring to earlier, Chris. Ella Purnell crushed it in that scene. I thought she was really, really good.
Yeah. No, she was terrific. That was kind of I think that's what I was referring to in the beginning when I said there was some surprisingly emotional moments. And that one worked for me. I think that, I thought that, no, don't really know how to expand on it. Just that it worked for me, and Batista crying and then her crying. It was solid. I didn't shed a tear or anything, but I was like, oh, that sucks. I feel for him.
Yeah, I mean, I found some of the more emotional scenes in the movie to be quite schmaltzy. Mm-hmm. That one really worked for me. I thought it was written really nicely. Both of them played the scene really well. How did you feel about that scene, Andris?
Yeah. The only thing for me, I was like, wait, where's the other lady? There were 4 people in that helicopter.
They did not establish Gita dying at all. She was just on the.
That upset me, because that was like the whole damn reason why they got into that mess. Not them going into Vegas in the first place, but whole like Batista's daughter just like, we gotta go save Gita, and it's like, okay, I understand. And then they got her, and then everything was fucked up because they went to go get her, and then she just died off screen and no one mentioned. Okay, what a way to make her just a random plot device. And you don't even care to have a resolution for it.
Right. Yeah.
I really didn't like that.
But it didn't kill the movie for me. It didn't kill that for me. I was just I was like, oh, did I miss something? I know I've only slept 3 hours today, and I'm watching a movie with a AC blasting in my left ear. But
I kind of had the same experience. I didn't notice it in the moment, and then I finished the movie, and I was walking around. I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Like at least have a. If you're already going 2.5 hours, go 2:31 and have a moment where the daughter sees her body and just sheds a tear, and then, oh, my dad's dying. Fine, but show us something.
Yeah.
Alien 3 style. There's the body of Corporal Hicks.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. It didn't ruin the movie for me, and I still thought it was an emotional ending, but it was kind of like it just really felt like this character that had very little characterization is very clearly just a plot device. We're done with her. Don't care about any resolution. Like, okay,
easily it was a loose end that easily could have tied up to make it, a satisfactory closing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, the last thing I want to ask you guys about, and it kind of felt a little bit like Zack Snyder's Justice League to me, is this movie has an epilogue that didn't need to be there at all, in my opinion. But Vanderho, so earlier in the film, sort of during the climax, Vanderho and the safecracking guy, they've become really tight friends, and safecracking guy puts Vanderho into the vault to save him from the zombies. And the American government, there's another thing I want to bring up, but then the American government nukes Vegas. And then the epilogue, we see Vanderho sort of come out of the bunker or the vault with all the money. He gets on a plane, he's going to Mexico City, and then we find out he's turning into a zombie.
Yes.
And I understand they make a point of saying the nuke was low yield. And I understand he was in a vault underground. I'm still not sure I buy that he survives that. And even if it's low yield, there would still be radiation, would there not?
Yeah, it would have been ground zero. Until they established the bite, I was writing down, I was like, that makes no sense. He would have died the second he got out, but then the bite reveal, and it's like, oh, all right, sure, whatever.
And
that's what I gotta say.
To me, it felt like that scene was just there to set up a sequel. It kind of felt like the Joker scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League was just there to say, this is where we're going to go in the future. Chris, how did you feel about the epilogue?
Oh, it's the same. I mean, it was just sequel bait. If it's as simple as just moving that moment to the end of the credits, as if the end of the credits stinger. I know that Marvel is synonymous with it now, but they didn't invent it, so there's no rule saying you can't do it. And I would have been happy. I mean, it would have been like, oh, cool, it's a cute little tease for a sequel. As the epilogue, it does feel kind of not jarring, but it feels out of place. Like there's mostly a cohesive conclusion with the story, and then it's just this, and it's like, okay.
Would you guys want a sequel to this movie?
Sure, let's see a sequel.
who's gonna be in the sequel? They all died except like one person.
It's
So you can't do
whole new cast.
like is Batista's daughter gonna take up the heist, post-apocalyptic heist zombie business? Like what? How do you make a sequel to something so specific is what I'm saying.
Right.
Is she gonna take up powerlifting like her father and become just yoked?
Just a beast.
That'd be awesome.
Now let me ask you guys. This is sort of my last question, but and maybe I'm out to lunch here, but I got and don't get mad at us in the comments. This is just something I noticed, and maybe I'm dead wrong, but
Hot takes coming in.
I feel like this movie was taking pot shots at Trump. Did you guys get that impression at all? Because at one point they actually interview like Sean Spicer, and then at another point on the news,
that's why I recognize this face.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy herself. She played him on Saturday Night Live. But there's also a moment where we see on the news that like the president has decided to nuke Vegas on July the 4th, but then there's outcry about it because it's unpatriotic, so he changes his mind. But then they have like a statement from the president. We never find out who the president is, but it was like pretty Trumpy. It's the most tremendously patriotic. I don't know. Did you get a flavor of that, or am I just crazy?
Yeah, no, this movie had definite shades of politics within it. That were, besides the Sean Spicer thing, they were not subtle, but they were vague enough that it could just work as like a like, even if you are like a diehard Trump supporter, you could just be like, they're making fun of the president, generic president, because government sucks, lol lol lol. But to me, it was, I mean, like you said, having Spicer in there and it's being made while Trump is still very much the president, got the release date got pushed back, so this, in a world without the pandemic, might have come out in 2020.
Right. Oh, wow.
So while Trump was still president. So yeah, and there was talk about it, just the political reaction to how they're going to handle the zombie situation. So it was surprisingly more political than I thought it was going to be, especially from a Snyder film, but also surprisingly more left-leaning, it seemed, than, because Snyder's always kind of come across as like a libertarian to me.
Right.
I'm getting way too specific. But also, so yeah, it seemed kind of left-leaning, but also vague enough that it wouldn't offend everybody. However, one last thing I'll say about that before passing it on is that line, though, did make me laugh, where it was just like, what the president said, that he wanted to nuke Vegas on the 4th of July because, in quotes, it would be totally cool, or just something like that. Yeah. And I was like, it was so dumb that I was like, all right, that's funny. It made me laugh.
Yeah, I burst out laughing in that moment. Andris, any thoughts? Final thoughts, if you will.
This is a terrible thing to do final thoughts on. We got one more thing to talk about this. It'll be brief.
Okay.
You'll see.
Okay.
It's the Romero curse, perhaps, in effect, because everybody always talks, oh my God, Dawn of the Dead 78, it had so many messages. And then later on, when he started making Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead, it felt like Romero was trying to capture what he thought people were seeing by becoming a little more commentary-ish with his films. And maybe Snyder felt obligated. I mean, this is a stretch, because I don't think anybody watching this would be like, oh, this is obviously a remake sequel to Dawn of the Dead. But I didn't actually catch any of that, but once again, I had slept 3 hours and there was a little giant air conditioner in my left ear, so maybe I missed it.
I mean, next time you got to put on the subtitles, buddy.
Yeah,
I considered it, but I was also so sleep deprived that I couldn't think enough to hit the buttons.
Okay.
No, the one more thing, I'm surprised we haven't talked about this. What did you guys think of the score by Junkie XL?
Thank you. I forgot to bring that up in my other review as well. I really liked it. I actually heard a little bit of Batman versus Superman and Justice League in there, like very sort of similar orchestrations. I thought it was good. Chris?
I didn't even notice it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, which is weird. I noticed the myriad of famous song covers that were played throughout, but which is weird because I really enjoyed Junkie XL's score for Justice League. I thought it stood out.
Yeah.
This wasn't nothing bad, but it felt perfunctory. It felt like it was, to me, I mean, like the fact that it didn't stand out to me, I think it kind of served its purpose, but there was nothing that I wanted to kind of look up afterwards and just kind of play on its own.
Okay.
Interesting.
What did you think about it, Andris?
Well, I didn't really notice it as much. I'm in agreement. But what was interesting for me is the fact that I am a longtime Junkie XL fan going back to the 90s. He started out as a dance music artist, making big beat along with like Crystal Method and all them. And when he was setting up the heist and they had this big beat electronic break song going on, I was like, oh, who was this? I looked it up. It was Junkie XL. It was kind of nice. It was a return to his roots for a minute. And I was like, hey, make an album, please. You haven't done one in decades.
All right.
So that's all I got.
Nice.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, because I think we're going a little long in the tooth. I do just want to say two things. One is a little reference. I don't know if you guys caught it. Speaking of homages, there was a very clear Star Wars reference in this. There was two. Essentially, Tig Notaro's character goes under the roof and she sees the helicopter that they need to use to fly out. And she says, "What a hunk of junk," which is the same thing. But there's two. There's one more. There's one more that's similar to that. So she's, "What a hunk of junk." Of course, when Luke sees the Millennium Falcon for the first time, he says, "What a piece of junk," in the same kind of tone. And when she tries to turn it on for the first time, you hear, and you guys can check it out, you hear the distinct noise that the Millennium Falcon makes. And Empire Strikes Back when it's, failing. So I was like, all right, cute little Star Wars references.
I can appreciate that. I'll have to go back and watch that.
I'm gonna have to watch this film with more than 3 hours of sleep and an AC unit not in my left ear.
There you go. Yeah, so nothing major about that. But just to wrap it up, again, I enjoyed this film. It was kind of too long. There were subplots that could have been cut. It was also not. It was fun, but it was also not as fun as this premise could be. I really think that something about being in Las Vegas, it didn't really play up the Las Vegas part, other than having some sets have slot machines in it. They really could have. I felt like with a premise like this, you really could have played up the Las Vegas gambling Sin City aspect, and it didn't. Mm-hmm. They really kind of could have transposed this to any post-apocalyptic wasteland. And Absolutely. I think that with the same premise, you could have had it not been 6 years into a zombie apocalypse, but more like current. And so nothing's like dusty and deserty and wastelandy. It's like Las Vegas as it is, the glitz and glamour with zombies. I think that would have been more fun. So I think this premise could have been more fun, but at the same time, it was still an entertaining horror action flick. So I would recommend it.
Andris, would you recommend this film?
I've got 3 ratings on my review series. There's the thumbs up, the thumbs down, and a shrugging skeleton. I give this a shrugging skeleton. I didn't hate it, but the concept of a heist movie set in the zombie apocalypse is interesting, but the execution could have been way better. Mm-hmm. This film should have been more memorable than it actually was.
Good. I myself, I would recommend it. I mean, don't think you're going to be getting the best zombie movie ever, but I think it's fun. If particularly if you're a fan of the genre and you like some really gory kills, you're going to get a lot of that. So, yeah. So that's that. We're going to move on for our last topic. Andris, do you want to introduce the topic and host this little segment here?
Sure. I don't know what I wrote on my list, and it wasn't that written out. So I'm just going to present the question to you guys. What is your favorite underrated zombie flick?
Chris, you want to go first?
No, I want to hear some of your guys first. I want to see I'm not copying anybody.
Okay. All right, well, fuck it. I'll go first. I'm not a huge fan of the zombie genre. I like them, but they're not my favorite when it comes to horror. I wanted to say 28 Days Later, but I think it's a hard sell to say that that's underrated. I think people really, really like that movie. And also some people would get mad at me and tell me it's not a zombie movie because they're not undead. I think it's a zombie movie. But for me, and I've talked about this movie on the show before, I believe. Again, I don't know that it's underrated. I think it's underseen. I think the general public are probably not even aware of this movie. It's going back probably 6 or 7 years now. It's a film called Maggie. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger and Abigail Breslin, and it takes place during, I guess, zombie apocalypse, what have you, and it's not really a horror movie. It's much more of a family drama. Basically, the premise is if you get bitten by a zombie, it takes you about 2 weeks to turn. And so everyone, if they get bitten, they have to turn themselves into the military, and the military take them to a facility and essentially kill them. And Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a Midwestern farmer named Wade, which no, sorry. Don't buy that. Add a line like, when I came here from Germany, Austria, thank you. Fine, I'm totally down. And just don't call him Wade.
Call him Wilhelm or something.
Yeah. But like, so his daughter, played by Abigail Breslin, eventually she gets bitten, and I guess he's got friends in the military or something, and they come to take her away, and he's like, no, she needs to stay with me, and I'll take care of it when it has to be taken care of. And it's essentially a movie about terminal illness within a family, just with a zombie bent to it. And it's like beautiful. It's heartbreaking. Abigail Breslin's excellent in it. Arnold Schwarzenegger cries in this movie, and I absolutely bought it. Like, this might be my favorite performance, like kind of outside of his usual big action stuff. Might be my favorite thing he's done. So I highly recommend Maggie. That is my pick.
Right on.
Every time you mention it, I'm like, I do need to watch this film sometime.
I would love to get your thoughts on it. I would love you to do a review of it.
Oh, maybe I will.
I think you should.
Would Chris like to go first, or shall I go first?
You go first.
Okay. I'm gonna be quick. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this on here before, but I want to be vague because it's good to go into this blind.
Okay.
It is a 1981 film called Dead and Buried. I can't remember who directed it, but I know it was an earlier Stan Winston special effects vehicle. I can't remember who's in it except for the guy who played Grandpa Joe in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
It is a mystery in a small coastal town. An investigator comes to investigate it. Things aren't as they seem. I don't want to say why and how this ties into zombies, because when you find out, it's a pretty horrific revelation. It's pretty, go check it out.
Oh, dope.
All right.
Right on.
Chris, man, it's up to you. Take it home.
The reason why I was hesitant about this one is that I don't know if it qualifies as underrated. It's Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, also known as the title Brain Dead, which is probably one of my favorite like top 5 zombie films ever, because it's easily one of the goriest films of all time. But I've
never actually seen it. I'm a Peter Jackson fan. I've been meaning to.
Go watch it, Court.
I intend to, but isn't that like, because he made that like super indie, wasn't he like cooking up the gore effects in his own kitchen and shit like that?
Yeah, this one still is like very low budget. His first one that he did, which I forget what was that one called? Bad Taste. Yeah, his first film, Bad Taste. That was what I'm thinking. That was the one where he did everything by himself. But Dead Alive, like again, also it's depending on what region you're in, it's also called Brain Dead. So just look it up. It's 1992 from Peter Jackson. It's terrific, and the reason why I said I wasn't sure if it counts as underrated is because it seems like within the horror community and anybody that's kind of like a big zombie fan, they all love it. Like, it's not like it's not loved. It's just not a big mainstream film. It was a low budget thing from New Zealand that had a bit of a cult following. And then of course, after Lord of the Rings was a success, pretty much all of Peter Jackson's filmography kind of, came back to the forefront. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, really check it out, especially if you're a gore fiend, gore hound, I don't know what you would call it, but this really is one of the goriest films of all time. Like, there's a scene where a guy gets a lawnmower and there's a sea of, and he holds it up, so it's just a spinning blade, and there's a sea of zombies in front of him, and I'll let you do the math. What happens next does not disappoint.
That sounds awesome.
That is a good choice, actually, because I know what you're saying. It's like, it's very well known, but I feel like people just always go, well, the gore. It's like, well, there is a good, ridiculously funny movie inside the gore. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, people kind of just check it off as like, oh, it's the goriest one. You're like, yeah, but it's also, there's more. It's unappreciated as a film.
True. It's a horror comedy for sure. And there's some laugh out loud moments in it as well. Like it's very goofy, gets kind of slapsticky in many ways. But yeah, it's not just like this serious but bloody movie. It's like it's just this wacky, slightly probably under 90 minutes long. It's a weird, wild ride from start to finish. So I had
if you like later Sam Raimi, well, not later, but like Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, it's kind of in that vein of Raimi's zombie horror for sure. But
yeah, that's a great comparison.
Way gorier in the best way.
Well, and I'll also say, like, one of probably my favorite thing that I've seen of Peter Jackson outside of Lord of the Rings, which takes the cake, but I love The Frighteners. And it kind of sounds a little bit similar, just the way you guys are describing, because it's like a horror comedy. And
yeah,
The Frighteners is like, it gets scary at times, but it's fucking hilarious. I love that.
For sure. No, that's a great one.
This might be blasphemy, but I've been meaning to see Frighteners.
Oh, dude.
You dig it. It's
so good.
It's really good.
Yeah, check it out. I will look forward to your thoughts on that one. All right, so that's pretty much the show here. So I guess the thing to do would be to ask you, Chris, where can people check your stuff out online?
You can check out my Instagram handle, which is called Art of Light and Shadow. It's really fun. I'm actually starting this week a kind of tournament. I have a bracket of 200 directors that I'm having users vote on to eventually see who is their favorite, who they believe is the best director. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun creating this bracket, so I hope you join me there. Art of Light and Shadow.
Andris, how about yourself?
Do a YouTube search for Cheap Thrills, Unspeakable Terror. I do reviews of sci-fi and horror from the dawn of cinema to the modern era.
And you guys can, well, you're already on my YouTube channel. And of course, feel free to subscribe, ring that bell, you know, that whole thing. But you can also check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Courtshake. Want to remind you guys, I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but I forgot because I'm an idiot. But if you can't always watch the show, now we have audio versions of the show on various podcasting apps. It's on Spotify right now. It's on Google Podcasts. We're working to get it up to a couple of other places like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So obviously check that out there. Again, we want to encourage you, if you enjoyed the show, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like on the video, that would be awesome. It really helps the channel grow, helps the show get out to more people. Of course, subscribe if you haven't, and you know, comment below with any thoughts that you have on these topics. What's your favorite underrated zombie movie? Are you looking forward to Batman Cape Crusader? Did you like Army of the Dead? Whatever your thoughts, you know, just put them down there. I will read everything. I will comment back as soon as I can. So we appreciate you guys watching. We hope you guys are all safe and healthy in this crazy time. And Chris and Andris will be off next week, but Chris and I will be back next weekend. No idea what we're going to be talking about, but we'll figure it out.
Cruella comes out.
Oh, that's true.
Snap.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
I kind of am too. Yeah. Okay. So we'll probably do like a spoiler review for that. Amongst whatever else. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for watching, and take care, everybody.
Later, everyone.